The house was so still that afternoon I could almost hear the clock breathing on the wall. I was curled up on the couch with a book in my lap when a sound sliced through the quiet. A phone ringing. Not mine. That tone was unfamiliar, muffled, like it was hiding. My stomach tightened as I followed the sound, each ring pulling me deeper into a feeling I couldn't quite name. I scanned the room until my eyes landed on a faint glow seeping out from between the couch cushions. My fingers dug in, and there it was, a phone, but not mine, and definitely not the one Marcelo carried every day. I held it up, staring at the strange device in my hand. My pulse quickened. What on earth was a phone like this doing in my living room? It buzzed again, insistent, like it was demanding I answer. My thumb hovered over the screen, torn between ignoring it and finding out who was on the other end. Curiosity won. I lifted it to my ear, and a woman's shaky voice slipped through, almost a whisper. "Marcelo? Is that you?" My chest clenched. Before I could even breathe, the line went dead, leaving me frozen, the echo of her voice burning in my mind. I just stood there, gripping the phone like it might shatter if I loosened my hand. That voice, nervous, secretive, wasn't meant for me. And this device, it wasn't mine, yet it had been sitting here, tucked away in my couch. A knot twisted in my stomach as a thought I didn't want to think began clawing its way into my mind. Could it be his? Could Marcelo really? I needed proof. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my own phone and dialed Marcelo's usual number. It rang once before his cheerful voice filled my ear. "Hey, love, everything okay?" He sounded relaxed, comfortable, like nothing in the world was wrong. My throat tightened, but I forced a smile into my voice. "Yes, everything's fine. Just calling to see what you'd like for dinner tonight." He chuckled lightly. Maybe pasta. I'll be home late." Late. The word stung like a slap. I swallowed hard. "Got it. See you," I whispered, cutting the call before my voice betrayed me. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at both phones, my chest rising and falling too fast. He was safe on his end of the line, but I wasn't. I was staring at the proof that our life had cracks he thought I'd never see. I set the phones down side by side, and the sight made my stomach twist. One belonged to the wife he showed the world, the other to the man he really was when he thought no one was watching. The truth was staring at me in the glow of that secret screen, and I couldn't unsee it. My pulse drummed in my ears, louder than the ticking clock in the kitchen. For a split second, I considered confronting him right away, calling him back, demanding answers, screaming the betrayal I felt boiling inside. But no, that would be too easy for him, too safe. He'd deny, he'd twist, he'd turn it into another excuse. I wasn't going to give him that chance. Instead, I felt something colder and sharper take root inside me. I slipped the strange phone into my lap, tracing its edges like it was the key to a locked door I had never dared to open. Whatever secrets lived inside, I knew they'd give me more than just answers. They'd give me power. And I was ready to see everything. I waited until the house felt like it belonged only to me again, the air still and heavy. With a deep breath, I unlocked the second phone. The screen lit up instantly, no passcode, almost as if it was daring me to look. My thumb slid across, and there it was. Messages, photos, call logs. All of them dripping with a name I didn't recognize at first. Isabella. The more I scrolled, the clearer it became. Candlelit dinners, hotel reservations, whispered goodnights typed out like stolen poetry. My stomach clenched as I read lines that should have been mine, words Marcelo once used on me, now recycled for someone else. It was like watching a movie of my own life, only I'd been replaced by another woman without ever being told. I snapped out of the haze and pulled out my own phone, taking picture after picture of the evidence. Every text, every receipt, every image, I captured them all like a soldier gathering ammunition. This wasn't just betrayal, it was arrogance, carelessness. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. And in that moment I knew, finding the truth wasn't enough. No, I wanted something bigger. I wanted revenge. I leaned back on the couch, the glow of the screen lighting my face as I kept scrolling. Each message cut a little deeper. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable. Marcelo, promise me she doesn't suspect. My jaw tightened until it hurt. Every word felt like salt rubbed into a wound I hadn't even realized was open until today. Photos followed, him smiling, holding her hand across a dinner table I'd never sat at, his arm draped around her shoulders in hotel lobbies I'd never walked through. He looked younger in those pictures, lighter, like he'd shed the weight of the life we'd built together. And that stung most of all, the ease with which he carried joy somewhere else while I sat at home waiting. I kept my finger scrolling, half in shock, half in fury, until my vision blurred. My chest burned, and for a moment, I thought I might scream, but I didn't. Instead, I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. Marcelo thought this was his secret world, his hidden life. What he didn't know was that he'd just handed me the script for his downfall. I saved the last screenshots and locked my phone, the weight of the evidence sitting heavy in my chest. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. No, this was something different, something sharper. Marcelo's second life was no longer hidden. It was right here in my hands, and that gave me control. He had no idea I was already 2 steps ahead. For years, I had trusted his late nights, the business dinners, the endless excuses that had slipped so easily from his mouth. And for years I had convinced myself I was overthinking, that maybe I was too suspicious. But now I saw it all clearly. My instincts had never lied. He had. And that realization felt like fire rushing through my veins. I tucked the second phone back between the cushions, careful to place it exactly as I'd found it. Marcelo would never know I'd been here, that I'd seen everything, and that was my advantage. He'd keep lying, smiling, playing his part, while I planned how to burn his little world down piece by piece. I spent the whole afternoon smoothing my face into the version of myself he expected, the warm smile, the easy laugh, the woman who believes in her husband's late nights. I cooked as if nothing had shifted, stirring the pasta sauce until the garlic was soft and the tomatoes smelled like summer. The kitchen filled with a mundane domestic comfort that almost felt like armor. Every spoonful I tasted, every plate I set, was a deliberate act of normalcy. I wanted him to walk in convinced that nothing had changed. When the door clicked and his footsteps padded through the hallway, I tucked my hands into a flour-dusted apron and moved toward him like I always did. He kissed my cheek, breathed in, and said, "Smells amazing in here. What's for dinner?" His voice carried that tired, relieved softness I used to find endearing. I answered with the practiced sweetness of someone who knows how to keep peace. "Pasta, just like you asked." He sat down like a man returning to his safe harbor. Compliments, small talk, the casual recounting of his day. Every word he offered was a test I let him pass, nodding, laughing at the right places, letting him believe the illusion was intact. Inside, I was counting beats, measuring his comfort against my rising cold resolve. I fed him laughter and watchful eyes, folding my anger into the rhythm of the evening so it would look to everyone else like ordinary married life. He leaned back in his chair with a satisfied sigh, twirling his fork like he'd earned the comfort of this meal. "You're the best," he said between bites, his tone dripping with casual affection. "Rough day, but at least I'm home with you." I smiled at him, wide enough to reach my eyes, though beneath the table my fists pressed tight against my thighs. He had no idea I'd already seen the kind of home he built with someone else. I watched him eat, studied the way his shoulders eased, the way his guard dropped the second he thought he was safe. Every nod I gave, every quiet was rehearsed. Inside, I felt the storm pulsing, a dangerous calm that made me sit taller, breathe slower. He was filling his stomach while I was filling my silence with something far more powerful: patience. Later, when he stood under the hot spray of the shower, humming some tune like a man with nothing to hide, I slipped the second phone back between the couch cushions. My fingers were steady now. Let him believe his secret was untouched. Let him bask in the comfort of lies. The truth was, I wasn't playing his game anymore. I was building one of my own. As the bathroom filled with the hiss of running water, I moved quietly through the bedroom, folding laundry with careful hands, just to keep up appearances. The second phone was back in its place, tucked deep between the cushions, as if it had never been disturbed. Marcelo would come out in a cloud of steam, kiss me goodnight, and believe his world was intact. That was exactly what I wanted. I slid into bed, pulling the covers over my legs, pretending to scroll through my own phone while my mind mapped every step ahead. He thought this house was his stage, that I was still the gullible audience applauding his performance. But the script had changed. Now I was the one directing every scene, and he was walking right into it blind. When he finally climbed into bed beside me, his hair damp, his skin warm, he kissed my temple like nothing had shifted. I closed my eyes and leaned in just enough to sell the act. But inside, I was wide awake. Every breath he took was a reminder of the mask I had to wear until the moment was right. And I promised myself I'd make that moment unforgettable. The weekend came, and with it, my chance. I dressed the house in warmth, candles flickering on the table, soft music humming in the background, the smell of roasted herbs drifting through every corner. Marcelo thought this was my way of celebrating him, of honoring his hard work. I watched him puff up with pride as he greeted family and friends, shaking hands, pouring wine, basking in the attention he didn't deserve. I moved among the guests with practiced grace, smiling, laughing, placing plates on the table as though everything about this night was meant to lift him higher. Inside, though, I was measuring every second, waiting for the moment the mask would drop. Not mine, but his. Every glass clink and every toast from our guests only sharpened my resolve. He was about to learn that secrets don't stay buried when they're in my house. Finally, when everyone was gathered, plates full and conversations humming, I stood. My glass raised high, my voice calm, steady. "To my husband, Marcelo," I said, my lips curving into a smile that hid fire. He's always told me honesty is the foundation of a strong marriage. I could feel him beaming beside me, nodding proudly. The room grew still, expectant, and that silence was my weapon. Marcelo grinned, raising his glass as if to seal the toast. "That's right," he said, his voice smooth, confident, utterly unaware of the knife hidden in my words. I turned my head slowly, fixing my eyes on him, and let my smile sharpen. "Then let's be honest," I said, my voice ringing just loud enough to hush the chatter around the table. "Marcelo, would you like to explain to everyone why you need a second phone? Or should I do it for you?" The color drained from his face so quickly it almost startled me. He fumbled with his glass, setting it down before it slipped from his hand. "Camilla? Not here. Please. We can talk in private," he whispered, but the words carried in the thick silence of the room. Every eye was on us, on him, waiting for the truth to spill. I didn't flinch. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and the television behind us came alive. "No," I said, my voice steady, even calm. "You made me a fool in private. Tonight you'll be honest in public." And with one swipe, the first photo filled the screen. Marcelo with Isabella, his arm wrapped around her as if she were the one he promised forever to. Gasps broke out like fireworks around the table. The room erupted in whispers, sharp intakes of breath, forks clattering against plates. Marcelo's eyes darted around the table, searching for an ally, but all he found were glares and wide-eyed stares. I swiped again, and another image appeared, him kissing her cheek outside a hotel, the timestamp glowing in the corner. The silence that followed was heavier than any shout could have been. "Camilla, stop," he begged, his voice breaking, his hand reaching toward mine. But I stepped back, letting him grasp at air. "You thought I wouldn't find out," I said, my voice cutting through the tension like glass shattering. "But secrets have a way of ringing, don't they? Loud enough to wake even the most trusting wife." I could see his chest rising fast, the panic setting in. I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each guest, family, friends, people who had believed in us. "This is the man who preaches honesty," I declared, nodding toward the screen. This is the man I've been married to. My heart raced, not with fear, but with power. Marcelo's mask had crumbled, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lifting off me. But I wasn't finished yet. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the scrape of a chair as someone shifted uncomfortably. Marcelo's lips trembled, searching for excuses, but nothing came out. He was naked in front of them all, stripped of the polished image he'd built. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My calm was louder than his panic. You ended this marriage long before tonight, I said evenly. And now everyone knows. I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been waiting to use. My fingers didn't shake as I slid it across the table toward him. Divorce papers. Signed, sealed, ready. Gasps filled the air once more, heavier this time, like a collective judgment pressing down on his shoulders. Marcelo stared at the envelope as though it were a live wire about to burn him. "Camilla, please," he whispered, his voice cracking, his eyes glassy. "I'll end it with her. I'll fix this. Just not like this." His desperation hung in the air, pitiful and hollow. I tilted my head, studying him the way you might study a stranger. "You already fixed it, Marcelo," I replied. "You fixed it the moment you chose her over me." And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just revenge. This was freedom. He tried to gather himself, straightening in his chair, but the weight of every gaze around the table crushed him back down. My family's eyes burned with disappointment. My friends shook their heads, and not a single person moved to defend him. For once, Marcelo was exactly where he belonged, alone in the mess he created. I sat taller, steady, feeling a quiet strength I hadn't known in years. "Where are you going to go?" he blurted, his voice shaky, desperate to claw back some piece of control. His question wasn't born of love, only fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of facing the wreckage without me shielding him. I let a cold smile stretch across my lips, one I didn't bother to hide. "Anywhere I want," I answered softly, my tone slicing sharper than any scream could. "The difference is, Marcelo, I'll be going without you." He flinched as if the words had struck him physically, his shoulders collapsing inward. The man who had strutted into this dinner smug and sure of himself now sat deflated, his lies exposed, his audience gone. And while he shrank before me, I felt myself expand, as if I'd finally stepped out from a shadow I never realized was swallowing me whole. I stood, the weight of the room shifting with me. Every eye followed as I gathered my bag, sliding the strap over my shoulder with deliberate calm. Marcelo's voice cracked once more. "Camila, please, don't leave me like this." I turned to him, meeting his pleading eyes, and for the first time in years I felt nothing but clarity. "I'm not leaving you, Marcelo," I said, my voice steady as stone. "You lost me long before tonight." I walked to the door, each step echoing against the silence that had fallen heavy over the table. Behind me, I could hear the faint rustle of papers as someone dared to peek at the documents I'd left in front of him. No one rose to stop me. No one spoke in his defense. Their silence was my validation, their stares his punishment. As I reached the doorway, I glanced back one final time. Marcelo sat slumped in his chair, humiliated, stripped bare in front of everyone he once impressed. That was the image I chose to carry with me, the man undone by his own lies. And with that, I stepped into the night air, my chest expanding with freedom. I wasn't just walking away from him, I was walking toward myself.